Welcome to episode 11 of the Movie Guy Podcast. I'm Jordan.
I'm Greg.
Today we're going to talk about the Star Wars original trilogy. And this is having viewed The Force Awakens. We have not seen the movie yet.
In fact, we were seeing it in, T-minus 4 hours?
Yeah, finally here. Been waiting since they announced that they were making a new movie, and has finally seen it tonight.
I remember where I was when Lucasfilm was sold.
I do too.
I was in California waiting to unload my truck at the Toyota plant. And I heard it on a podcast, and I was like, whoa! I was losing my mind.
I was on the bus on the way home from class, and pulled up IMDb like I normally do just to pass the time, and then saw that, and saw that they were planning on making a new trilogy, and I was all in from that moment. Yeah. And here we are, 4 hours away from getting to see.
That was, what was that, like 3 years ago now? Or 2 years ago?
It's like 3 years now.
I'm old because that time has flown by.
It's crazy. This is a fun time because just the anticipation in all realms of life right now for this movie is crazy to me. It's crazy to witness. You know, because I wasn't old enough to remember this for the Phantom Menace, which I'm sure was similar.
Yeah,
but I mean,
for me, I was in 7th grade or something like that.
In all walks of life, I'm a big sports guy. You're less of a sports guy, but I've been reading sports articles and stuff, and all week they've been doing stuff where they'll relate Star Wars characters to sports stuff. I mean, it's in everything.
It's everywhere. Have you ever felt this kind of fervor, anticipation for a movie before?
Never. I've barely felt this kind of fervor for anything, much less a movie.
I am so impressed with how well they've kept spoilers out of the media.
Oh, it's crazy.
And they've had an enormous campaign for this film. I can't remember the last time I saw this much blanketing of ads and promos and everything. I don't watch standard television, right? I don't watch the airwaves, so I don't see commercials like you used to all the time. And I still have probably seen some advertisement for Star Wars.
Because you tried to stay away from as much.
Oh yeah,
I have too, but
I hate ads.
I've watched all the trailers, or most of the trailers. There's one that came out last week that somebody had told me. Someone told me it's got a lot of other stuff in it, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to watch that one. It's a week away. I can hold.
You could wait.
I haven't watched any reviews for it. Haven't read any reviews for it. So I'm trying to go in as fresh spot. But I did think I called. I told you earlier. I think I caught a spoiler on Facebook. I didn't even mean to go on. It was just out of habit. I was scrolling through and.
Well, I told you earlier too. I was listening to a podcast today at work. And one of them mentioned Princess Leia, and I just ripped the cord out of the radio because I did not want to hear the next words that were coming out of the guy's mouth. So basically, the
moral of the story is, if you're listening to this, you won't hear any Force Awakens spoilers because we have not seen the movie yet. This is Friday. They had pre-screenings on Thursday. We're a little late seeing it because they made $57 million last night alone.
How does that compare? So I never understand the numbers for the numbers. I never understand the money value. So what was the last record-breaking amount
$57 million for an opening, the pre-screenings on Thursday night is the record by $14 million. The previous record...
Just for the pre-screening, they beat the record.
Yeah, the record for pre-screening was $43 million set by the last Harry Potter movie, and this made $57.
Oh, wow.
No movie has ever made $100 million in one day, and pre-screenings count for Friday's tally.
So they're going to hit it.
It only had to make $43 million today.
Yeah, which movies make all the time nowadays.
So,
dude, we contributed to that. That's fun to know.
On Fandango, they've sold more advance tickets for this movie already than any other movie has in its entire run.
Wow.
It's insane.
I can't wait to see what this movie does. This movie's going to make $1.5 billion.
Oh, it's going to make so much money. I think it'll break Avatar's record for domestic run.
What's Avatar at? Do you remember?
Between $700 and $800 million, I think, domestically.
For domestically.
It's at 2 point something, I think, internationally.
Billion.
Yeah, billion. We're excited for them. But basically, the moral of that is we don't have any spoilers in here.
We're going to geek the F out when we're all done with this.
So, prequel talk last week. We did that. You can check that out. That was a little long, but we had fun with it because we don't like those movies very much, and we made that quite known. These movies, on the other hand,
we like a lot. So ironically, it's going to be shorter, probably.
I think this is the greatest movie trilogy of all time.
Really, the greatest.
The greatest trilogy.
better than Indiana Jones, better than Toy Story.
Yeah, I'd say better than Toy Story.
I'm trying to think of other
Indiana
great
Jones
trilogies.
is technically not a trilogy anymore.
What is?
Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay.
Because they
Well,
made the fourth movie.
Much like the Star Wars prequels,
we try to
we
pretend
will
like it
cherry
doesn't
pick
exist.
what we like.
But see, for me, Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, the second one, is kind of a weak link in that trilogy. This one's weakest link, in my opinion, I know you've got a completely different opinion, is Return of the Jedi, and it's still a great movie.
It's still a great movie.
So, I mean, when I reviewed these movies on my website, I gave Empire 5, A New Hope 4.75, and Return of the Jedi 4.5. So
okay, which are high marks for you.
Yeah, so those are very high marks, and there's no weakness there. And I think what I was thinking about, I think the greatest thing about this trilogy is how it sets up this universe. I think it does it better than any other movie universe out there, because it walks this fine line between throwing you in there so you don't know what's going on, which is bad, and then going out of its way to tell you stuff that it would have no reason of telling you other than it's a movie.
Right, because you don't live in the universe, you have to be told.
And I love how it introduces characters. All these characters we love, introduces them one at a time, with the exception of R2-D2 and C-3PO, and gives them brief periods so you get to know them before you start going on to somebody else. At least the main characters.
Before they matter, yeah.
So, like in the beginning, you get C-3PO and R2-D2 in the ship in the beginning.
Yeah, you're kind of treated as one entity.
You're introduced to them. Then you're introduced to Princess Leia briefly. Then you're introduced to Vader. Then you go down Tatooine, you're introduced to Luke, then Obi-Wan. So it's like, a lot of movies, they'll introduce you to the characters, but they only give it a second or two, and then later in the movie you're trying to catch back up. Like, who's this again? This movie, it does a great job of not throwing too much at you at once. And it does that with everything. And then you're introduced to Han Solo later. Then that's pretty much it. And the next movie is, it builds on what the first movie does, which I think is so great about Empire. It doesn't try to expand itself too much. It doesn't try to get overly complicated.
It's a really great middle movie.
It really
so many middle movies. Think Quantum of Solace, for example. Like they don't bridge well enough. And Empire it sets up the next film. It prepares you for the end. It gives you all this interesting filler detail.
But that's what I'm saying. It just straight builds not only on the story, on the characters. Like, you get these really focused moments on each character. You learn more about Luke, becomes a lot more developed in Empire. You learn more about Vader. You learn more. That's when you get your first look of the Emperor in a hologram, but is in Empire. Then you get the romance between Han Solo and Leia, which I think is one of the most believable romances in any movie ever. It's not forced in there. It feels very natural.
Very
they
natural.
Have great chemistry.
The thing that bugs me so much about the Anakin Padme relationship is that but that's, we can choose better pejoratives than that. It is so ham-fisted together.
Yeah.
It's like block, square, or round object, square hole. It's crammed them together. It doesn't work. And in order to make it work, I mean, it's like bad fan fiction. And whereas Han and Leia feel like every friend you've ever had that should have dated and didn't quite do it right away.
It's like, she is this higher standing person, and he's basically a pirate is what he is. Yeah. He's a smuggler. So, but he's just oozing coolness, and that he's kind of got
he's debonair. And
he's kind of got that bad boy vibe to him. So she doesn't want to like him, but you can see, even though she doesn't admit it for a while. And then they have that moment on the Millennium Falcon where they kiss for the first time, and it's like, it feels so natural. So you get these moments that build these characters and the story throughout this trilogy, and then they'll introduce a little bit more. So they'll like Yoda and Lando are thrown in this movie, so it introduces a little bit more, and then it sets up the finale perfectly. I mean, you go from it's this weird of it's picking up where the last one left off, then it's got its own story, and then it perfectly sets up, and it does it so fluidly. It's amazing to watch. Empire's my favorite, if you haven't gathered that already. It's one of my favorite movies. It's in my top 5 favorite movies of all time, is Empire Strikes Back. Wow. And then Return of the Jedi is my least favorite of the trilogy, but I still love that movie.
I'm curious, what makes it your least favorite? Like, if those were the only 3 movies in the world, what would you have bad to say about Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi at times feels very expositional. Like,
There's a lot of talking.
there's a lot of talking, and like I said in the beginning, that they don't do it a whole lot. They start to get to the point where it feels like they're only saying these things because the audience needs to know. There's a few of those moments in Return of the Jedi.
As you know moments.
So it's very expositional. It's very dialogue heavy at times, and it's.
I thought you were going to say the Ewoks.
I don't hate the Ewoks. You know, a lot of
I don't
people
either.
get up in arms about them. I mean, I think that if they had done something like, I heard the original idea was to do Wookiees instead. I think that's cooler. I think that would have made more sense for the fight. It doesn't overly bother. I think we spend a little bit too much time with them.
Yeah, there's some quibbles that I have, and we're getting ahead of ourselves here on the films. But the problem that I have with that, problem I have with them is that they're overly comic booky, they're overly cartoonish,
Yes.
right? So it's like the Tribbles in Star Trek, like they're these cute, cuddly things.
I don't even know what that is. So
Okay, well the point, all you need to know is that they're these they're animals that are just impossibly adorable.
Right.
Like, they don't make sense in nature. Nature doesn't make
right.
cute things just for the hell of it, right? So anyway, it just comes across. Obviously, we're talking about a fictional universe, but like it just comes across as the teddy bears. I mean,
Right.
so I don't know. I didn't like that element about them. I do like that they're a tribal people.
Right.
That felt fun. This idea that they're because they're so primitive, the Empire doesn't even care that they're there. They might as well be moss on the trees to them. They've built their base, this giant shield generator. The moon is all about a base for them,
Right.
and that's fascinating to me. This idea of, because we do that here in the world. You know, we just go bulldoze the rainforest right next to native tribes because we don't give a fuck. I mean, to us, it's the modern world. So that's interesting to me. But they're too cute.
I see why people hate them. I see that problem that people have. It just doesn't bother. Maybe it's because I saw it so young that I
mean,
attached
again,
to
these
it as a
shows
kid.
were made for younger crowd. Maybe
Right.
maybe not, especially Harry Potter did this, where J.K. Rowling aimed the series at 11-year-olds, and then she worked up from there.
Right.
Each book came out for a little older group of people. Well, Star Wars may not have been intentionally for children, but it was aimed at a younger audience, and so I don't have a problem with that at all. And now that you have Jar Jar Binks to compare it to.
I would
It's
take
just
Ewoks any day of the week and twice on
it's
Sunday.
so different. It's the stark difference. I learned today too that George Lucas only directed A New Hope.
Yeah, and the prequels, but
In terms
Right.
of these other three, I'm trying to mention the prequels as little as possible.
yeah.
I don't know that will happen, but at any rate, so what else makes the Empire the best of the three for you?
But besides the perfect arc that I talked about, and Han Solo's my favorite in the series, and I think he's one of the best movie characters ever. And
I think there's an argument to say that he should have been the star of the show, other than Luke. The only difference there is that the Force is sort of at the root of everything,
Right.
and he doesn't have the Force.
But
in the same
you
ways.
get a lot more moments with him in Empire,
Yeah,
and so I enjoyed watching those.
Empire is definitely more about Han Solo,
and it has the best lightsaber duel, the best conclusion, basically. That lightsaber duel with Darth Vader, because
the reveal, the "I'm your father."
Yeah, spoiler alert. We're not going to
It's
worry
been
about.
30
We're not
plus
going to worry about
years.
spoilers.
You're
No,
the-
no,
too
I'm
bad now.
just messing with you. But talking about just the duel itself, because you have the lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, but I mean,
Very understated. That's what I like about those earlier lightsaber battles.
they are, and the one I like about this one so much is you feel like Luke is overmatched the whole time.
Oh yeah.
It feels like Vader's toying with him. And so I think for that reason, it doesn't feel as choreographed as some other ones do. But you feel like Luke's holding his own. So you kind of get that back and forth. It's like, oh, he's always... And then he does a couple things, like when he gets knocked into the hole and Vader's like, oh, that was easy. And he jumps out. Like, he's got these moments where, all right, he's got something there. He's just really raw. He's got raw talent. And then you get the moment where... Vader's using the Force to throw things at him. And he's like, okay, now he's way overmatched again. And just that whole thing and the dialogue in it. I mean, say what you want about the dialogue during the lightsaber duels, whether that would be something that would actually happen or not, whatever. the dialogue in that one is the best.
Much better. Yeah, and dialogue in general, the banter is so difficult because from what's happened for me is it now reminds me of video games,
Right.
where you just have these cheesy lines by the boss that you're fighting,
Right.
and that's a trope that has followed from. I mean, movies did it first, and that's why video games did it. But what is said in those, it matters more because now
exactly.
you have this crescendo of action. You know, the fight in most lightsaber battles in this slowly build to some climax. You know, in the Return of the Jedi, the ultimate being the Force lightning from the Emperor. But something is always being learned in that moment, either by the audience or by the characters. Look, I'm your father. Leia is your sister.
I can't imagine that reveal. But because, you know, this is 1980 is when this movie came out.
This is a world
that's way before internet and all that. Nobody would have known any of that stuff. Like, there was no risk of a spoiler getting out. You know, so
someone would have had to see it first and then tell you that was the only way.
Watching it now, obviously, I've known for years that Luke is the son of Vader, but that was a really weird way of saying that. But that was what I came out with.
Luke, son of Vader.
I've known that for years, but still watching it, I try and put myself back. Like, how would this impact me if I had never seen it before?
Right.
And when you think about it, there's a moment in Jedi that's like that too that I'll talk about later. But it's like, wow, just that must have blown people's minds.
Do you think the world we live in now, with constant updates, Twitter, and you've just got a device in your pocket that tells you anything you want to know instantaneously, do you think we lack now in our lives we lack surprise?
Yeah, I think we do, especially with the way, I mean, less about Twitter, all that, say what you want about all that. I mean, obviously you can get spoilers from that, but if you have enough self-control to stay off of it, you're not going to get it. But my problem now is these movie trailers that we get that give the whole movie away. We talked about it, or I talked about it.
We're going to talk about it every time we do this.
Batman versus Superman. That you just give the whole movie away, and it.
What was that movie? You and I were sitting together, and it's that one with the. It starts off and it's like there's this heist going down with like surfers and stuff. Remember that?
Point Break?
Yeah, and we were sitting down and we were like, I thought I saw this. Maybe it was my brother, and my thought was they literally just showed us every high point till the end. The only thing we don't know is the conclusion.
Right. I don't think you saw that with me because I have different thoughts on that.
Okay.
But...
Well, then my point is with a lot of these trailers, and I will shift away from Point Break and just be generic. That it's like they have so little faith either in their movie or in their audience that they feel like, we better tell them a heck of a lot to get them in. And that is, I was so worried that they were going to do that to Star Wars.
And they didn't.
That's I have so avoided. I've watched one trailer. And when I say I've watched one trailer, I mean like I think I've watched it once. I just want nothing to do.
I've watched all the trailers except the international trailer that was released a couple weeks ago that I talked about earlier. I've watched all the trailers multiple times, and I would be willing to bet I don't know that much more about the movie than you do.
That's the way to do it. You just it's called a teaser for a reason. It's meant to give you just enough to make you want to come. And the problem now is my assumption is that they want the trailers to be a little longer instead of a minute. Now they're 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's in 3 minutes. I don't think there's a movie in the world I couldn't spoil for you in 3 minutes.
Right.
I mean, it's so much time.
But see, the thing is,
they got to compete with each other. Every movie trailer's got to one up the other. And if the movie isn't that good, how many times have you seen a trailer for a movie and be like, oh my gosh, it looks great, and then you go and see like Heart of the Sea for you. You felt like it didn't quite live up to itself because all the great stuff was in the trailer. Comedies have that problem. How do you get someone to go to a comedy if you don't tell them some of the jokes?
Something, and I talked about this about the last trailer that came out, but and I know I'm in a minority, but I don't like the X-Men movies that much. But every time they make a new one and I see a trailer, I'm like, oh, that looks great.
Yeah.
And then I'm let down by the movie.
That's too bad. I love the movies.
So this new one that they got, this trailer looks great, but I'm really apprehensive about the movies. It's like I don't like the movies that much.
Because whoever's making the trailer knows what they're doing.
Yeah. So, but I mean, to relate this back, you didn't have any of this back when Empire came back. So you...
Have you ever watched a trailer for the originals?
Yes, I have.
I've never done that. I should have done that. That would be great.
Empire Strikes Back has this really cheesy trailer that's voiced by Harrison Ford. It's like
Really?
It's really like fast paced. It doesn't show you much of the movie, but it's like really fast paced, like talking, and it's really bad trailer.
That's funny.
It's one of
A lot of the trailers that I've seen from that era, for any movie, tend to be slower, like really slow movie trailers. I wonder if we're going to look back in 10 years and be like, wow, that was frenetic. Like just some of the movie trailers you see today are just lights, color, sound.
That's how the new Star Trek trailer is for me.
I have not seen that yet.
It's terrible.
Did you see the I think it was, I saw it on Facebook, but the joke was that how Star Wars responded to the Star Trek trailer, and it's this Death Star hovering, or not the Death, it's what do you call it? Gosh, listen to me. It's a Imperial ship.
The Star Destroyer.
Thank you, God. I was struggling. Star Destroyer hovering in Earth's atmosphere, and here comes Starship Enterprise, and it fires a couple phaser bolts at that, and then the camera shaky pans up to the sky where there's like this moon-sized Death Star.
Yeah.
And it just fires this big old laser pulse down and blows the shit out of the Enterprise. I feel like Star Wars is going to steal the show for the next couple of years.
Yeah. I mean
it's like the way the Avengers have just dominated the box office. Star Wars is going to take over, especially
what's ironic about that is Disney owns both.
Oh, Disney's going to clean up no matter what. Disney is one of the top companies in the world that I think is like, when they talk about like the end of the world, if there is such a thing and it comes from corporations, Disney will be one of the ones that brings us all to the end. But they, I was going to say, especially if so they're going to have the main trilogies, which are like the Avengers. So if they do all these other spin-offs, if they have 2, 3, 4 franchises the way that Marvel has done, man, I mean, we're going to see a movie a year or 2 movies a year for like a decade.
That's fine.
I'm with you on that.
There's so much.
So long as they don't slack off.
Well,
some of the Marvels have really gotten. Some of them are rough.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even expect all of them to be good. I would expect there to be a bad Star Wars movie every now and then. But
I kind of feel like
give me as many as possible. Because there's so many stories you can tell. I want to hear these stories.
And why wouldn't you want more of the stuff you love? I mean, I think that's pretty much the way you approach
this movie could be bad, and I'd still be excited for the next one. Because the prequels are bad, and I'm this excited for this one. Yeah. So I mean,
it's interesting to me, and maybe it's just the time that has passed. I don't know how. It's interesting to me how pissed off people could get at the prequels, and still be just losing their minds about this next movie.
It's this love of these movies that we're talking about tonight.
It's the enduring power of the first 3. That's what I think.
Because our other roommate had never seen these movies, and he always gave us crap about it. As Star Wars is bad, he's always giving him crap. I sat him down because he wanted to go with us tonight. I sat him down and made him watch all 3 original movies last night.
What was his conclusion?
And he liked them.
Really? I wondered how that was going to turn out.
He liked them, and it's like I don't know anybody who thinks Star Wars is bad other than people that have not seen Star Wars.
Or girls. A lot of girls don't like it, I've noticed. No?
But have they sat down and watched them, though? Because I've run into people who said they don't like Star Wars, and they've either never seen them, or they've never watched them all the way through, or they haven't seen them in a while. And I've done it with a handful of people. If you sit them down...
You're like a missionary.
If you sit them down and make them watch them, everybody I know enjoys them.
Yeah.
They might not love them as much as I do. They might not love them as much as you do. They might not love them as much as our audience, who, if they clicked on this, obviously loves them. But they enjoy these movies. And I think that is why everybody is so excited. Despite how bad the prequels were, they're hoping it goes back to what these movies were, which are fantastic. So I guess we can go movie by movie here a little bit.
So I'm gonna. I think we're both big Star Wars fans, but I think you are exponentially more of a Star Wars fan than I am. So if you don't mind, I want to kind of like play this interview style and ask you questions.
Okay.
Best and worst of A New Hope. I want to hear your favorite moments, your least favorite moments.
Best.
And it could be small elements. I'll give you, for example, for me, one of my favorite moments in all of the first film is just that shot where Luke is looking at the sunset.
Yes.
The 2 suns. That
right.
When I watched that for the first time, I was in my early teens, and I just remember thinking, like, because I that's one of the reasons that I got into space at all. I'm a huge, maybe we'll talk about this more at some point, but like I'm a huge fan of space and rockets and all that good stuff. And looking at those two suns and thinking, oh my gosh, there are places that really like that out in the universe. That just got me jazzed. And
All right, so
that's one of my best
moment. It comes with a caveat, because we just watched it a minute ago on Altered. Is the scene between Han Solo and Greedo. If you pre-special edition, which I have now, thank God, in my possession, when Han shoots first, guys. We're throwing our own hat into the ring here that everybody talks about.
And in fact, I don't think Greedo shoots at all.
He doesn't. Yeah. Han shoots first. We're throwing our hat
in that camp.
Yes. So I think that scene, just not only the fact that he shoots him, is that whole scene says so. You get so much about Han Solo in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's the writing, I don't know what that is. It's probably the power of Harrison Ford to some extent, but it's amazing how much you find out. And then he went back and screwed with it and made it so that Greedo shot, and it's
it's interesting.
Ridiculous.
There was a string of directors who did that with a couple of their older films. Spielberg went back and changed all the guns in E.T. to walkie-talkies because he felt...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
He did his own version. And I think it's because Lucas and Spielberg are kind of tight in terms of friendship, and they just kind of had this idea that... I don't know, because the Star Wars in particular, it was... Did he feel... When I say he, I mean Lucas. Did he feel that there was a bad moral in that? Because the movies, in general, like I think we both agree that they're science fiction, but they're much less. They're not hard science fiction.
No, they don't really try and be scientifically accurate.
They're much more like westerns.
Yeah.
Or
they're space opera. That's what it is.
Space opera. There you go. I've heard that before as well. And westerns have that kind of thing too. I mean, they have outlaws and good guys and bad guys and the white hats and the black hats. Like, that's okay to have. And the audience, I think even young kids, when I say, let me put a number on that. Let's early teenagers or tweens. I think they can distinguish between reality and fiction, and are mature enough to understand what that moment was about. You know what I mean?
So I love that moment on Altered. I would say that was my least favorite moment after it's Altered, but I mean, well, I'm not going to choose that as my worst. I like the space battle at the end, because I think for 1977, that still holds up today, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how good that looks. So the space battle at the end is one of the best moments for me, especially when you get that first kind of idea of Luke using the Force, and you kind of get that, oh wow, this really is this powerful thing, and they don't go out of their way to show you that. It's just you get that feeling. I like when Obi-Wan first really explains the Force, when they have that moment when Luke's training on the Millennium Falcon and Han Solo is there talking about hokey religions and ancient weapons and stuff like that. I love that scene because he's explaining it to the audience, but Luke is just like the audience.
They do such a good job of getting around the problem of you, the audience, not knowing the rules.
Right.
We've talked about this before. In a book, you can have a character think about it, you can narrate it. There's just an infinite number of ways to cleverly tell the reader whatever it is you want them to know. In a movie, somebody has to say it or you have to show it. And if you can't do either of those things, you get these awkward, what I call as you know moments, where two people who should already know what they're talking about have to explain it.
That's what Return of the Jedi feels like in some moments to me.
And they do it. I've just been listening through Harry Potter again, and I've realized how much exposition there are between characters. I mean, it's practically like the villain monologue they make fun of in The Incredibles. And anyway, so that moment you're talking about here, where they have explaining the Force, they explain it to Han, they explain it to Luke, they explain it to each person along the way, and all of a sudden, you get this very rich understanding of the world they are in without feeling like an idiot being told. You know,
not only, and this is another scene, 2.5, 3 minutes. Not only do you find out what the Force is, you've instantly developed twice as much each of these characters. You learn more about Obi-Wan, you learn more about Han, you learn more about Luke. Without feeling like you're actually learning about them. You don't realize until later that now you know these things about them.
There's very few moments in this movie where I kind of roll my eyes. I can think of two.
All right, so my worst is how kind of whiny teenager Luke is at times, where it sounds really stupid. I think Mark Hamill's acting is okay in A New Hope. It amazes me how
much he changed.
how much better it gets through these movies.
Do you think that the character of Luke, independent of Mark Hamill, do you think that character is a whiny character? Or do you think if in the hands of another actor,
Yes.
he should have been a little more?
I think
courageous?
based on some of the things, the dialogue wise, the way it's written, I think it's meant to be a whiny character. I just don't.
I think
I wanted to go to
he's
Tashi Station and pick up some power. It just sounds kind of stupid in my opinion. So
I feel like he is. He's. I mean, I don't know what his like. I mean, Luke is clearly supposed to be late teens at the very youngest.
Right.
So I don't know how old he's supposed to be, but like you get this feeling that he is childish, and that's that. I mean, this is his. You know, you want to talk about the monomyth. This is all about the hero. Then it's his arc.
And as much
and he should start at a lower place.
Exactly, and that's what my next point is. As much as I don't like about that in this movie, it's one of my favorite parts about Empire is how much he grows. So it's like you kind of have to have that negative in this movie to make it a positive later on. So I mean, there's not a lot of worst in this movie.
Yeah.
It's very.
Mine probably there's two moments that I would call my worst, and that they're very short. One is when Luke and Leia are swinging across that open chasm, and the stormtroopers don't get the idea to shoot under the door.
Right.
That just it's so small, and all they're trying to show in that moment is that they quote unquote outsmarted the stormtroopers. But who in their right mind wouldn't shoot under the bloody door? If your goal is only to kill them,
What are you British now? Saying the bloody door?
No,
you
it's
listening
Harry
to too much
Potter.
Harry Potter.
I say so many Britishisms now because of those bloody books. See, that was not. I feel dumb now. So anyway, that's annoying. And then the other moment is when they fight the TIE fighters. When they're running away from the Star Destroyer. Yeah, Star Destroyers. Goodness. They have this really corny celebration afterwards. We did it!
Yeah, I love that scene. Like, I think that's great for like a better
like,
action scene because
everything up to the we did it.
Yeah, that gets a little cheesy.
It looks. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it looks like a like Sesame Street celebration. It just drove me nuts. So those are two of my least favorite moments in that.
You have other favorite moments of the ones that I've said in the song one that you were talking about?
Yeah, I really like the scene in the trash compactor.
Yeah.
Just because it felt like, of course, the Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
Has a or the Star Destroyer. No.
Death Star.
Death Star. Goodness,
Death Star.
I'm screwing up. It's old age. Of course it has a trash compactor. You know what I mean? It's like it'd be like if they hid out in a bathroom. Like it kind of felt like we were seeing the dark alley of this little bright and beautiful city. It's like unlike other movies. Let's say Tron, for example. The entire film and Tron had its own aesthetic, but like you never see the dark, dirty corners. Everything's bright and polished. Well, that's so different in this. I liked seeing that other side of things. And everything with Han Solo.
Oh, yeah.
Just when he has that little conversation about, everything's fine down here. How are you? Like that's so.
And then
silly.
And then the moment where he runs out of being able to lie and he shoots it.
Stupid conversation anyway.
It was a boring conversation anyway.
Yeah.
And Luke, we're gonna have company.
He's really good at having like the last word.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Like I said, he's one of my favorite movie characters of all time, if not my favorite. I mean.
Yeah, I think other than that, there's not much to be said about that movie. There's a few quibbles that everyone, I think we'd be remiss to not bring up how simple it is to destroy the Death Star or whatever. Like,
yeah, whatever.
Whatever, exactly. Yeah. I don't. Some people bring that up, but I think it's worth. It's worth the ticket price. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole movie was
the lightsaber duel. Some people don't like it as much because it's slower or whatever. But I really like that because first of all, it's the first time you ever see these weapons. You see Luke training, and you get the moment where Obi-Wan cuts the guy's arm off in the cantina in the beginning, but you've never really experienced this duel, and it's another one of those things. You feel Obi-Wan's old age, but kind of feel like he's strong with the Force. So.
Yeah, and you learn about that. This was sort of I don't know. Again, ham-fisted into the prequels, but this idea that there's more to life than just that you can. So one of the ideas, and this is put on in the expanded universe, so take it as you will. that there's that once you die, sort of, it's almost Eastern religion, like you go back into the consciousness of the universe or whatever.
Where he's like, if you strike me down, I'll be more powerful than you could ever imagine.
Right, but the idea is that you lose your individuality.
Right.
Whereas they kind of cram that into the originals, or the prequels rather, that you can somehow retake. Because Qui-Gon Jinn apparently, keeps himself separate. And then, anyway, I don't know if that was a very good idea to try to like iron that out that way, but as a plot point.
The another thing I like is you just with a few lines of dialogue, you get the sense that there's a long history between these two.
Yes. And
you get that from the fight, which is it's ironed out in the prequels for better or for worse, but you feel that just from 2 lines of dialogue. When I left you, I was the apprentice, and now I am the master, and only a master of evil, and you get these moments that these two have had a long history together. And
did you notice that there's 2 things I want to point out? One, that he says, when you said only a master of evil, he calls him Darth.
Yeah.
Which is we now know as a title.
Right.
It's not a name, or at least they've turned it into a title. So that was kind of seemed funny. It's calling him Mister or something. You know what I mean? It was a little funny to me. But the other thing that I noticed is when he is giving Luke the lightsaber, and he asks, "What about what happened to my father?" or whatever. Mm-hmm. He goes, "He was killed by a Jedi." And that's curious to me, because of course everything that happened in the prequels is they had all this time to decide how to create the universe. I like that better because it makes the past seem a little more simple.
Right.
And this hundreds of Jedi or whatever it wasn't quite that way. It was a little more homegrown. 20 Jedi. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I liked it. It liked it a little better. It made the past seem a little more mysterious and simpler. And anyway, so that's kind of how I'd wrap up A New Hope.
I mean, I said earlier 4.75 out of 5 for me. Is it a 5 for you or lower?
It's definitely a 4 and up. I don't know. It's hard. These movies are really hard to classify because they're like, it's like saying rate the sky. Like it's always been there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like this is not a new movie.
Like I review movies, so I have to kind of come up with a score for things. But it is hard sometimes.
So my main thing with a movie is it rewatchable? And of course,
I rewatch it multiple times a year. I mean, I rewatch it all the time.
So I mean, it's a 4 or a 5. It's really high.
Yeah. So anything else, like interview style, that you were talking about that you want to ask about?
Not for that movie.
All right, go on to Empire.
Empire, we've talked about it a lot. There's a couple things I want to ask you about. What do you think about the carbon freeze as a piece of the device in the movie? What did you think about that?
I think it's cool because it's like, I like the moment where Darth Vader's like, "Oh, we're gonna test it on Han Solo first," and then you get from Boba Fett, he's like, "He's no good to me dead. Well, the Empire will reimburse you if that happens." Yeah. So I like that moment, and then.
It's almost like that's funny because it's almost like Darth Vader kind of cares about the bounty hunter enough. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's very businesslike.
Well, to me, it's almost like the opposite of that. He says that I don't believe for a second.
Oh, really?
If Han Solo died, that he would do it.
So he's comfortable lying. He's comfortable pushing people off.
That's how
like when he tells oh crap,
because he knows
altering the deal.
He knows nobody's gonna screw with him. So he's like, if I tell him that, he'll just go away. He's not going to question it. Because, I mean, every time somebody makes a mistake in these movies, he force chokes them to death. So whenever somebody sees that, they're not going to mess with him anymore. So I think that's where it's coming from more so than he actually planned to do so. But I'm trying to figure out how I want to phrase this. In terms of a plot device, it's an interesting thing that they want to do.
I haven't seen anything else like that in movies before.
No, but
and clearly it's an it's imprisonment. So I mean, you call them people taken prisoner. But now this adds this extra layer because now it's all of a sudden he's fragile, right? You can't just grab him and throw him in the back of your ship.
The thing is, I feel like it's almost Darth Vader has this feeling of how powerful Luke can become. So he doesn't want to take any chances of, handcuffing him and put him in the ship. he wants to make sure he's out for his trip to the Empire, as he's called, Emperor,
as he calls it.
Yeah, so I think that he's got that feeling that maybe not yet, but he's got a lot behind him here. So we want to make sure he's out of commission rather than just, because your initial thought is, why wouldn't they just throw him in handcuffs or use the stun feature on the stormtroopers' guns that they use on Princess Leia in A New Hope? Why would you do something like that? But then you're like, well, maybe he senses that maybe that's not a good idea. So I think that's an interesting plot device because it does that for the movie.
Lando Calrissian.
Oh, oozes charisma. He's the perfect, I don't know if foil's the right word for Han Solo, but definitely I want to see like a buddy cop movie between those, like with those two. Just
the Lando is one of my favorite characters.
Oh, is it one of your favorites?
Yeah, it's hard to choose, and one of the reasons why I like him. I'll bring this up in Return of the Jedi. It's his role in the battles and all that,
right.
Because he comes up. He's a Han Solo-like character.
Yeah.
If Han Solo wasn't in the movies, we would have had Lando Calrissian. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's an equal in charm. He goes after Leia. You know what I mean? I love that, and it's almost he's Han Solo's equal in a lot of ways, and that's what makes me like him so much. But because he's not Han Solo, he's this other in such a great way.
And then you get this. He was just trying to protect his city, but then he realizes the mistake he's made. So the rest of this movie and the next movie is him trying to make up for that.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a huge role in the sense of like screen time.
Oh no, he's on screen for
30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Oh, tops.
Yeah, but he's just he's one of my favorites, and every line he has is like when he's falling in the Sarlacc pit. Like I thought you were blind. Like that's hilarious.
Yeah.
At any rate, I have another question for you. We have to talk about Yoda. So this is the first time we see Yoda.
It is the first time we see Yoda.
What was your thought? Because I didn't get... When I was growing up, I saw Return of the Jedi from a recorded tape off the television a dozen times. I had no clue where Yoda came from. So for me, Yoda had always existed. So when I finally did see all of the movies in a row, I was flabbergasted to find out that Yoda showed up in the second movie. He wasn't there from the beginning. I love this is probably my favorite moment in this film is the training.
Yeah.
And not from look, he's lifting things.
Right.
From that point of view, it's believe it or not, it was even as a young kid the philosophy of do or do not, there is no try.
Right.
When he says what will I find in there? Only what you take with you. Like I love that. It feels so
even going
true,
back further than that. I love our introduction because you have to think back. If you put yourself in 1980 again, this whole creature that's messing with Luke at the beginning, you don't know that's Yoda until they reveal it.
He could be just as insignificant as the little thing that laughs when the slug. My God, what's wrong with me?
Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba the Hutt. God.
You're struggling tonight, Chief.
I need to have my what's this? I can't even remember that I was going to make a joke about vitamins for old people. Centrum. I don't know. Centrum Silver.
Anyway, continue.
Sorry. He could have been just completely irrelevant and he'd come and gone, but no, oh my gosh.
But
he's important. Jedi, you speak.
From the beginning, he's testing him.
Oh yeah.
He's testing his patience, and you get that moment in his house. He's like, I can't train him. He's too impatient and he's too old and
he will learn patience. That's so iconic to me.
Yeah.
It just pops every time. And then when he flies off to go save Han Solo and his friends, no, there is another.
That's another.
Just as you might notice, and I don't know if this is intentional, but for me it rings so true. As the ship is lifting away, you get like these landing lights flash across Yoda's face from white to red. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was just this dichotomy of the light side and the dark side. It's probably an unintentional.
We'll talk about another moment like that in Return of the Jedi when we get there. I've told you about it before, but I'll get there in a minute. But that's another. You get so many reveals in this, but that's a cliffhanger. That's something that you pick up on it. You don't get an answer to that until Return of the Jedi 3 years later.
I feel like filmmaking has been so affected by television and by the fast-paced world of the web and all this stuff, where you don't have the patience to wait. and to build these epic moments like tonight. It's going to be so satisfying to wrap this movie up with no knowledge of what's coming into every other movie.
Right.
For like the last year, I've known so much about going into it. Like, so when we went and watched Sicario,
yeah,
that was so much more fun.
Yeah.
Because I knew so little about that movie. Granted, I was pissed off at the end, but I knew so little about that movie.
That's one of my favorite. I think
but
when it comes down to it, I think when it comes down to it, that movie will be in my top 10 of the year. But besides that, that's off topic. But
well, the point I'm making is that
yeah,
you don't get surprises anymore.
Right.
And I would love to see a filmmaker be patient and just say, screw all y'all. Well, this is how I'm doing it.
Transitioning into Return of the Jedi here, is that all you got to say about Empire?
Yeah, let's move on.
That's a 5 out of 5 for me. It's one of my
of
my favorite movies of all time.
It would be hard to rate it anything.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I love that movie. It's the one I watched the most out of any of the movies.
Do you have any quibbles with that?
No, I can't think of anything.
I wish that this whole time we were talking, I was trying to is there anything I don't like?
I mean, I'm sure if I really thought about it, there's things that I
can nitpick.
If you have to think of things to nitpick, then it's pointless to even try.
Yeah, I think the only thing I could come up with is R2-D2's sort of his presence in the swamp is kind of silly. There's a couple times, like when he distracts Luke and he drops the rocks. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that moment I don't like.
Yoda gets mad at Luke for that. No, it was the fucking robot's fault.
I love the moment when he falls off the ship. I love that scene because you kind of get his, like we've talked about before. I think where, oh no, I think I was talking about it with our roommate. You know exactly what both Chewbacca, who we haven't talked about at all somehow, and R2-D2.
Yeah, what happened?
You know exactly what both of them are saying, even though they don't speak English. And I think you get that when R2-D2 falls into the swamp. He's got that little like he's
yes. They do it very well with like little musical cues.
Like
with Chewie, they play him off of Han Solo all the time, which is a really interesting. It makes me wonder: is there any other movie that portrays two characters where they both speak a distinct language, but somehow understand each other? I think that's a fun. It's a fun way to make and a creative way to to create this sense of something that's exotic.
Most of the time,
without having to bore the audience.
Most of the time, you don't even realize it. You're watching the movie, and unless you really think about it, you're like, oh, they're just talking to each other, but you don't. But
it's so natural.
Going back a little bit here, like I said, you understand what he's saying, even though he's not saying anything. But you really get that when at the beginning of the movie on Hoth. When they close the blast doors and Han Solo and Luke Skywalker are still out, and Chewie just kind of lets his head down and then roars, it's like, exactly how he feels. He hasn't spoken any English, but from his body cues and from the way he growls, roars, whatever you want to call it, exactly what he's thinking, and I love that. Speaking of which, what do you think of that battle at the beginning? We haven't talked about it at all.
On the surface of Hoth?
Yeah.
Love it.
It's awesome,
I love it. That's, in fact, it's that's so iconic to me because you can play that in one of the N64 games. And
it's a perfect mix of practical and CGI.
Yeah. So they do something that's stop motion, too.
Yeah.
If that's what you meant. That's one of my favorite moments.
Obviously, CGI is not
they did something with the matte paintings and then... I forget green screen effects and things like that. Which that's the way they had to do that before. But is so incredibly hard.
You get lasers hitting and you get actual explosions. Things like that.
So
that kind of mix.
I think the best thing they did there is I've come to know it as the footprint in the snow, and that's when you have the AT-ATs walking in these big heavy machines, and the feet are coming down and boom, boom. It's in the snow.
Right.
You should see these big plumes of ice and crystals come up off the ground, and you only see it once, and that's enough because now your brain just kind of puts it in there. In fact, there's a scene when it's very clearly, looking back at it now, it's very clearly stop motion, but fine, it looks very good. Where the foot comes down and it hits this pattern, and it almost looks like flour or something, and it doesn't puff up or anything. But you've seen it once already, and you buy it, and that's movies do that really well, I think. Or that's a really good thing to do in a movie that has an effect, and maybe your budget's different, or who knows what your constraint is. that you can only do it once or twice. You show the audience once really, really well, and then every other time you show it, you can pull the camera back, you can do something else, but now you believe it and you've seen it, and that's what you're going to remember is the big bad effect, and that's what they did anyway. So I love the battle there, and I also love that when they come in and they're all in squadrons and they have this very sophisticated plan on how they evacuate. And I love the ion cannon for all its silliness, and who in the hell would want a gigantic weapon that can't really move? I love that. I love the idea that like the rebels are actually fairly organized.
I love how they
take down Star Destroyers.
Obviously, this takes place a few years later after A New Hope, and you're never really told that. You're never really told what happened, but you get these moments in the beginning. That's kind of, these characters have been through a lot, when the no-name general is talking to Han Solo, is like, you're a great fighter, we hate to lose you, stuff like that, a great leader, whatever he says. And it's like, okay, Han Solo's been doing stuff the last couple of years, and now it's finally time for him. But you get those moments where it catches you up without feeling like it catches you up.
That you just remind me of something. We didn't talk about this. I think this is a big moment. When at the end of A New Hope, when Han Solo just busts in and saves Luke.
Yeah.
That... It's sort of the, Deus Ex Machina, like, oh my gosh, out of the blue, here comes the Hound to save the world. But I love that moment so much.
Yeah, because you think maybe it's Wedge Antilles coming back because he flies off for a while, so you think maybe he's circled back around, and then all of a sudden you see the Millennium Falcon's got the sun behind it.
Oh,
so it's just coming.
Which the Millennium Falcon is the coolest design
it's the coolest
for any ship. I don't know, if I had never heard of the Millennium Falcon and I saw this thing, it looks so weird. But now that I know it's Millennium fucking Falcon, it's just, and having it just come out of the sky and the sound effects just, oh man, every time I see that, it makes me feel like a little kid again. Anyway, I had to bring that up.
Move on to Jedi.
Yeah, I think it's a good moment. So, I'm going to talk about my least and my best and least here. I'll make a little bit of a change. My absolute favorite moment is. It's a trap, all craft pull up, or whatever. Yeah. I just love it when he says, "Oh, craft pull up," and like that. It's because it feels so. This is the battle.
Yeah.
And the music coming up to it, and there's all these shifts. They're preparing, and then like the abort. I love that. Lots of movies do that when they'll have some kind of crazy abort scenario, and everybody has to just scramble. I love those moments. You see the coordination and everybody following orders, and the ships, especially those big, huge cruisers. In there that you see the little craft just immediately turn around like 180 real fast. You see these ships, they're slow and ponderous, and you feel the weight.
Yeah.
You feel the immensity of these structures, and you realize they're trapped. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm in. For all the jokes you make about it's a trap. No, I don't care.
No, it's a great...
I'm so into that. That whole sequence. And that's one of my favorite ones to watch with all the other scenes cut out of it. I can't get enough.
It's a great moment. I hate to interrupt you and go in a different... But you mentioned something that we haven't talked about too, which is the music in the series. Some of the most iconic songs, I guess, for lack of better words, in movie history.
Score, yeah. These tracks will live on, man, in such a way.
Do you realize, because I had never realized this until I read it, the Imperial March isn't in the first movie. It doesn't exist until Empire Strikes Back.
You're right.
But it's so iconic and associated with Darth Vader, it's almost in your head every time you see Darth Vader in the first movie. So it's like it's so iconic that even though it doesn't take place until the second, once you rewatch those movies, it's automatically in your head. So I didn't even pay that any bit of mind until I read that and was like, oh my god, that's true. But you get that. I love the balance where that's Darth Vader / the Stormtroopers, like the Empire's theme song. And then you've got this other one that's more for the light side for Luke and the Rebels and all that. I like that back and forth kind of thing that it has going for it.
I'm a big fan of the music.
Yeah, it's great. Well. John Williams is a genius.
Which is too bad. John Williams has done this thing now where I don't know if he's just pulling from the same pool of ideas, but he's become a little repetitious. Like you can hear bits of Harry Potter in the Hook soundtrack, and you can hear bits and pieces all over the place from his music. But what I do like about John Williams is immediately recognizable.
Yeah.
He's just fantastic.
So that was just something we hadn't mentioned yet. I just wanted to get that out there. One moment I want to mention about, because I wanted to mention it earlier, but I wanted to wait, is going on the themes of surprise reveals in 1983 now.
You were so sharp with all these dates.
Is the moment on Tatooine during the fight scene where R2-D2 shoots a lightsaber out and he grabs it out of the air and ignites it, or whatever you call it, and it's green. I can't imagine in 1983, because you didn't know there was anything but blue or red lightsabers.
Yeah, and it's silly and tiny almost from this point of view. Now you're like,
I love that moment where it looks so cool. It's like, oh my god, this
and the
green.
sound, and you realize now he's made his own, right? Isn't that the story here?
Yeah,
he just had to make
there was a deleted scene where it showed him making.
Yeah,
his
that
lightsaber.
would have been cool to see. And the sound of those lightsabers, I don't remember them sounding like this in the first one, but that I don't know what that. I would love to know the process by which they created that noise.
Have I told you, or have you read on your own what the reason it's green is?
The post retcon thing that I read in the books when I was growing up was it was the way the crystals vibrate.
No, I mean not necessarily. Do you know the reason they made it green?
Oh, the practical? No, I have no idea.
So, it was initially blue, and you could watch a trailer. There's a trailer for the movie that you can see that it's blue in that scene. But going through post production, they realized that the blue lightsaber was really hard to see against the blue sky in the background. So they changed it to green.
Oh, cool. I love details like that. That's
awesome.
Fun.
It's awesome. But I mean, I just can't imagine just being an audience member and be like, oh my god, it's green. Like, because that's not something you think about. It's like blue and red. Yeah. Good, bad. Now we've got green thrown in there. It's just a cool. And that's the reason it came about is awesome.
Yeah. That's fun. What do you think about the Sarlacc pit? Do you think that's a cool?
It's a cool idea. I love Han Solo's moment when he's telling him about it.
So bad.
No, he's like, you've been sentenced today. He's like, good. I hate long waits. And then he's telling him about. He's like, oh, that doesn't sound so bad. And then he's like, you'll be slowly digested over thousands of years. And you just kind of get that reaction from Han Solo, and it's a funny line of dialogue that he's got.
I'm really disappointed that Boba Fett bites the dust so unceremoniously.
I agree.
And maybe that only matters to me because they create this whole backstory for Boba Fett in the prequels.
That is true.
That changes my opinion of him. He goes from being generic bad guy, slightly more cool because he's got a name and kind of a short backstory, and we've cared about him for a couple movies now. He goes from that to being this kid who had like this intense upbringing, and he watches his father die in front of him, and you're just like, you almost start to care about Boba Fett in a new way. And then it's just such a shame that he has this unceremonious.
I understand everybody's problem with that, but for me, it was never really a character I got super attached to.
Even after seeing the prequels.
No, I just never got super attached to him. So to me, he is just kind of the bounty hunter with a name that is chasing him around, but he can die any way possible.
He's as cool to me as Darth Maul is.
Really?
Oh yeah, I think because he was the Darth Maul, the side bad guy of the originals.
I see it. I just don't have that same attachment to him for whatever reason. It could be just I saw the movies at a different age, and I was more focused on these characters.
Sure.
But so that doesn't necessarily. I see why it bothers people, but it doesn't bother me as much.
That's probably the opening scene. That's probably my least favorite part of this movie because there's not a whole lot else that's that bad, with maybe the possible exception of some of the Ewok fights.
Well, my favorite moment, and I alluded to it earlier when you were talking about the lights flashing across Yoda's face.
Yeah, talking about this
is I think I've talked to you about this before.
But I'm with you because I had the same excitement in Attack of the Clones when it happened.
In the middle of the fight with Vader at the end, the culmination of everything, which is why I love this fight so much, is you get the moment where he's hiding. He says he doesn't want to fight. He's just hiding behind a pole. And while Vader's going on this dialogue, and he's just talking and talking, Luke is sitting there listening. And whether done on purpose or not, half of his face is covered in shadow, and half of it is covered in light.
Excellent.
Like he's having this internal battle. And then you get the moment where Vader's talking about how his thoughts have betrayed him, and now he knows about Leia. Maybe she'll turn to the dark side.
He gets so pissed.
And Luke loses it. Luke gives in a little bit. And he has, it's all aggression, and it's another one of those fights that doesn't feel choreographed. It just feels like it's all, he's just going after him. He's going after him. He wants to kill him. He wants to stop him from corrupting Leia, I guess. And then
I think he just lets his emotions get the better of him.
yeah, but then you get this moment after he cuts his arm off, where
This bothers me a little bit, but go ahead.
where he kind of reins himself back in.
Yes, I can't fight you, Father. But you just did. That's every time I see that, I want to shout at the screen.
No, I like that because it's like that's the difference between being a Jedi and being evil, at least in the movies, is the fact that he could rein himself back in and not kill him.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this in the other podcast. The idea that for the Sith, the mastery of the Force is an avenue to power.
Right.
Whereas for the Jedi, mastery of the Force is the end in itself.
It's for knowledge and self-defense.
Right.
And,
it's enlightenment.
Yeah.
That's a very Eastern tradition. Whereas, for example, like learning martial arts is a way to, center your mind and
right.
stuff. Where somebody else could use it for attack.
Right.
I find that a very compelling. In fact, like this is one of the things that has always gotten me. Almost you feel like Lucas was like drawing on some kind of other thing. You feel like there's real truth in that, and obviously it's invented by a guy who pulled from a lot of other
right.
pieces of material, but gosh, it feels good.
Yeah.
I love the moral, such as it is.
Yeah.
And I grew up when I was in middle school and high school. I had a friend, and we were so into Star Wars. We wrote each other letters about it, like we were when we moved away. Gosh, that sounds so Romeo and Juliet. No, that's not what it was. I moved away, and we kept writing. And this was before the internet was easily accessible to
right.
teenagers. And we were so deep into it. Like, we counseled each other, man.
We used to have, me and my brother and our neighborhood friends used to have lightsaber duels with the little plastic lightsabers in the front yard.
Oh, yeah.
We would make up storylines about what was going on.
Yeah, and come up with your own Darth Vader names and Jedi names.
So if you were, would you be a Jedi or would you be a Sith? Would you be the bad guy or the good guy?
So tempting to be a Sith.
Yeah.
I love... And it has nothing to do with they just look cooler, they have cooler names. There's just this grittiness to it. It's like when you watch the movie, like TV shows like Breaking Bad, you don't want to be the good guys, you want the bad guys. I mean, it's the anti-hero a little bit. I think Darth Maul is so infinitely more interesting than Qui-Gon Jinn, for example, to me.
I wouldn't go that far because I think Qui-Gon's he's screwed with the dialogue at points where he's talking about midichlorians and stuff, but I feel like that's a really I want a backstory with him.
Qui-Gon's more interesting in some of the expanded universe stuff, in particular the what's it called? It's the not Young Jedi Knight. It's Jedi Apprentice. It's a short book series, maybe 20 books, about 100 pages long each, written for kids, and it's about the story of Obi-Wan, and his relationship with Qui-Gon, and it's great. I like it a lot, but Qui-Gon's more interesting there. In the movies, though, which we're kind of focusing on the films,
but no,
Qui-Gon is less interesting.
I get that he's less interesting in the films, but you get the feeling that there's a lot there.
Well, with every character you have that. I would love to know more, but when the Emperor is explaining to Anakin about what was it, Darth Plagueis the Wise or whatever, that was one of the only moments in the beginning where I'm like, oh shit! That's like I'm at the edge of my seat. Tell me more.
That's what I'm saying about the fact that I will watch Star Wars films as long as they make them. Because you could take any of these things. You could make a movie about it. You could make a TV show about it.
The universe feels so developed.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning.
Right.
You don't doubt anything. You just already feel it. It's populated with new people and events. And I think the prequels, in fact, almost bring the universe and make it feel smaller. In a negative way, like all of a sudden Jabba the Hutt is at the pod race. You know what I mean? Like, wait a minute,
stuff like that. Just to throw characters in there that you.
Yeah,
it's unnecessary.
It's too much. So right place, right time. Oh, okay. But Um, yeah, I've lost the thread of my thought there.
Me too, so it's okay.
Okay. So other moments that you like in or other points you want to make about Jedi? What do you?
One negative I think
go ahead.
is it feels a little lazy for them to be building a second Death Star. Like if
Yeah, you could have come up with a cooler idea.
you could have come up with something
Or
else.
a new idea.
Yeah.
Why do you think they did that? Like, just go imagine yourself in the writer's room for the second movie, or excuse me, third movie. What do you think was the rationale?
Know.
Because, like, oh, we did so good, everybody loved the Death Star, we got to have another one? Or do you think there's, like, an actual,
Because it's
like,
I think
plot
maybe
point for it?
And maybe The Force Awakens will, who knows, because we haven't seen the movie yet. I think it's...
in a few hours, half of what we've said tonight is not going to make sense.
Yeah. How do you top the Death Star, I think was the problem. So it's impossible to build something, or at least so far, that is better than that. So they need something, so they're like, okay, well, let's just do it again. But
there's kind of a neat thing that they did this time, and it's half
it's
half built.
But
that totally...
That kind of bothers me to an extent, because even though it's significantly built, and only 3 years pass in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi between those two movies.
Well, 3 years in our time. How much time passes in film?
I think it's 3 years. I think it's real time, for lack of a better word. I could be mistaken on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not.
Well, in the interim, all we know is that Luke has gone and become a Jedi,
right?
And he goes back.
Yeah.
And visits
So, but not enough time has passed. I don't think. I mean, you have to have 1 million people working on that 24/7 for that much progress to be done in a couple of years.
Well, but now, granted, we're working with a universe, like a literal universe. How many people are in the Empire?
And that's a fair
Hundreds
argument.
of millions, hundreds of billions.
But just on the
planets.
surface, I mean, you can start thinking about it. It might make more sense. But on the surface, it's like, wait a second.
Well, I've seen some really geeky stuff.
And how does the Empire raise the money to do stuff like?
Well, again, I mean, you could write this all out.
Yeah.
Like they own
Yeah.
ostensibly everything. But so I saw some really geeky numbers on like what resources would be required.
Oh yeah, I've seen it too.
To build
I've seen it
a
too.
Death Star.
It's like $40 trillion.
Oh, it's it's the resources of an entire planet. There's so much. You'd have to have so much metal, so many, all the computer systems and all the various things. And this is of course going by some of the technology that we use now and not potential. For example, inside the Death Star, gravity all goes one direction.
Right.
Like, as far as we know, the only way to create that is to spin an object. So there would be gravity, much like a planet, except you'd be reversed. You'd be on the outside instead of the inside of the structure.
It does spin.
But yeah, but you'd have to have centrifugal force. Anyway, so all of that aside,
It rotates.
the raw materials
Yeah.
would take a civilization like the size of ours, a couple millennia or something. It would be a long time. So it's the same thing with the Halo universe. That's a cool idea. Is it possible?
That's getting nitpicky. I think the fact that they used the Death Star again is a legitimate gripe with the movie. But
right.
I think,
well, the reason I bring this up is to say, if we're going to stick around in the universe with this idea of building another Death Star in such a short amount of time, what would it really take?
Right.
And then you start questioning, is it even, like, it's half done? Should it even be less done?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But nevertheless, like, as a viewer in the audience, you're just like, oh crap, it's back. Like, it's like you killed the bad guy, but he didn't really die.
Well, here's
like,
the
that's
thing.
kind of fun.
Here's the thing: is you get at the end of Revenge of the Sith, there's kind of an outline of Death Star that they're looking at the end. It's in progress of being built. 20 years pass, and they're just now becoming operational. Because when they destroyed Alderaan, it was the first time they've ever used the weapon. It's just now becoming operational. It took 20 years, but now they've done it halfway.
20 years for people who can live in space, right? Like, that's a big deal.
And so halfway done in 3 years seems...
Yeah, who knows?
So, I mean...
the other question is, maybe this isn't Death Star 2.0. This is Death Star B. Like they were building them at the same time.
That's legitimate.
That's the only way I would go about that. Because if you were, if you've started building this ultimate weapon, and you literally run the universe, well, what's better than one? Twice.
Yeah.
Or two for the twice the price. Like, it's a good idea.
That's a hell of a tangent, though.
Well, at any point, God, I'm down the rabbit hole and I've lost the entrance. We'll talk about Yoda for a second. This is one of my favorite moments. Gosh, there's so many, but like this is another favorite moment for me is, this is the whole series, Yoda's death.
Oh yeah.
I love he was 900 years old. You know, I love the idea.
Look as good, you will not.
I love the idea that Yoda has reached this point where he's so old, he's so wise. Day, night, tomorrow, today, like all these things they blend together. They might. I mean, for heaven's sakes, I'm only 30, and I feel like days are too short. Imagine 900 years. This idea that he's at the end of a very long journey and it doesn't matter anymore. I love that idea. You kind of wish that like at the end of your life, your own life, you will kind of have achieved some sort of point where you're not really worried about death anymore.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, I hope to aspire to such a thing. So that conversation he has, and when I also love the idea that he just fades away. There isn't a body left over, and that's really interesting when you look and of course we've already seen that with Obi-Wan disappearing. Of course, he almost chose his death, which is interesting, but which makes you wonder, did Yoda as well? But Yoda is just sort of goes away, and his body goes with him, which is this interesting because like in a lot of our religious ideas, the body stays and the spirit is what lives on. That almost makes you feel like there's something else going on.
It's the spirit that stays and the body that goes is almost how it seems.
Well, yeah, and that and you can retain your individuality in some way, and that you don't you're gone from this realm but not the other, and we kind of get a peek at that at the end where all Anakin and everybody's alive again, or is visible again. I love that. I don't know. It's kind of comforting in a very sci-fi way.
I definitely understand that. I mean, it's definitely a good moment, and like I said, while I think this is the weakest, there's a lot to like in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I
talked a lot at the beginning about what I liked and disliked, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff to like.
You know, one of the things that I do like about the special edition, which is few, I love the end scene of Return of the Jedi. They add a new track, a new song, and a celebration scene of all around sort of the Republic, of the end of the Empire, or at least the end of part of the Empire. It's sort of like the Arab Spring here. Sure, we got rid of a lot of dictators, but there's still a lot of problems. Right. You know, there's that similar experience, on Coruscant. They're tipping over statues and all this stuff. I like that. This very, I don't know, just the fire burning and the end of the enemy. I'm digressing. I really like as a final movie to a series. I think Return of the Jedi just knocks it out of the park.
It's definitely a good final movie for sure.
And the title, just the Return of the Jedi. Like I think they did such a good job.
They initially named it
naming these.
They had initially named it. Ugh, bad at talking tonight. Revenge of the Jedi. But decided
glad they did
that kind of clashes, like Jedi revenge.
Jedi don't get revenge.
So then they.
So when they go back and say Revenge of the Sith,
they use the
suddenly
title.
That makes a hell of a lot more sense. God, that's actually a good title.
Yeah. It's better than Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones could use some work, but Revenge of the Sith, and of course we've as we discussed before, it's probably the best of the first three, or the prequels rather. Oh, that nomenclature is gonna kill me. I hate that. Anyway, what else do you want to say about this series? How momentous this series is for people. How much of a big deal it is in our culture. It's everywhere. It's on sports. It's on the late night news. It's everywhere.
I know watching sports, and every sport is particularly big in baseball, but they do it in a lot of other things. You have Star Wars nights where
I did not know that.
Where they'll have a game one night, and they'll label it as Star Wars night, and everybody comes dressed up in Star Wars stuff. What other movies, what other series do you get that? You don't.
Nobody else is that big.
Yeah, you don't get those things. My parents took my brother to Disney World for his graduation trip when he graduated high school, and it was Star Wars week. People were dressed up in all sorts of stuff. I didn't go with them, but they were telling me about it. I mean, it was even past us kind of nerdy level. I mean, we sit here and talk about movies for a podcast.
Yeah, but you probably would never dress up.
I would never dress up.
It's like they're cosplaying to like a a $2,000
In
costume.
90-degree Orlando, Florida heat, they're wearing robes and...
I find this fascinating. This is a cultural penetration.
Yeah. Unlike we've ever seen
Unlike anything else. And, I heard something today that's really strange to me. If you talk to anybody in the quote-unquote Western world, they're likely to know something about Star Wars. Even if, a joke about Yoda or from Darth Vader, you know something. Apparently in China, like, a quarter of the world's population, Star Wars is barely a thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's interesting that people who have never seen these movies know the characters.
They can recognize.
They know who Darth
Vader
Vader is. They know who Yoda is. They've heard of Luke Skywalker. They might not be able to recognize him, but they've heard him. They've heard of Han Solo. It's that deep penetrated in our society that people who have never seen the movies know the characters in the movie.
I think I think if there had not been prequels, the Star Wars legacy, though still big, would have faded a little bit.
I think so too.
And I think however we feel about the prequels, I think we owe a lot.
Right.
I think we owe tonight, are about to see this movie, to the prequels.
And I'm just trying to soak this all in, man. This anticipation. Not only have I never felt this anticipated for something, but just in general, the world right now is so excited.
When was the last time you felt this excited?
I don't know.
The last time I can tell you, the last time I felt this excited was when StarCraft 2 was coming out.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a video game. It doesn't matter. It was a fan favorite for 10 years. It's this mid-90s game that people were still playing in 2009. Right. I mean, it was just, and there was 30,000 people on the at night playing this game because you could go online and play with other people. It was huge. Super, super huge. And it just, because it lasted so long, the game company that makes that went ahead and released it again, another one.
Right.
I was so jazzed for that. I've subsequently stopped playing the game because they've changed it so much I didn't like it. But nevertheless,
that's the last time you were this.
And that was years ago. And I've never, for a video game, I have never been so excited and waited years for that. That same exhilaration is what I've had feeling up to now.
I'm trying to just soak it all in because I don't think we'll ever see anything like this again. No. So it's really,
maybe with other titles, 10, 15 years in between. Harry Potter, for example, might be another big revival.
Right, but it's kind of pissing me off a little bit. Like you'll see some places, people that don't like Star Wars, probably that have never even seen the movies, kind of they'll post on social media, be like, I don't like this is pissing me. Like I don't want to hear any more about Star. Even though you're not a fan, just take a step back and realize how insane this is, and just try and soak it all in.
It's interesting because you almost want to shout at them like, this is a moment in history,
Just try and... That's what I'm going to the theater. I don't know jack about the movie. I'm just going to sit there, and when
just let it wash over you.
When the song blares at the begining, if I have a tear in my eye, it won't surprise me at all. Like
it's okay. You can cry, bro. It's going to be good. I think... God, we're going to prove ourselves wrong if this is all terrible, but I'm going to preemptively... I want to, just for the hell of it, let's rate the movie before we see it. Just for fun. We rate the movie before we see it, and we compare after when we do our review. What do you say?
I'm going to go 4 out of 5.
I'm going to go risky here. I'm going to say 4.5.
Because I trust J.J. Abrams made me like Star Trek.
Which for you is a big deal.
So the fact that he has now got one of my favorite trilogy, my favorite group of movies of all time in his hands, I feel...
He, in a lot of ways, to me, is a reprise of Spielberg.
My favorite...
I think he does a lot of Spielberg-y things.
Yeah, he is a great... And Spielberg's one of his idols. I mean, he's not afraid to say that.
Well, I think a perfect example is Super 8.
I was about to say the same thing.
Super 8 does a fantastic job of combining all these sort of family-friendly elements from Spielberg with like all the cool shit you saw in Cloverfield and, all this other stuff.
My favorite thing about this upcoming trilogy and these upcoming spin-off movies, whatever, now they're in the hands of people who grew up with it. Now they're in the hands of the fans. And I think that lends itself...
The fans with $200 million.
Right. So I don't think that it can be bad. I don't know that it's going to reach heights of Empire or...
I think this is going to be the best Star Wars movie we've ever seen.
You think so?
Yes.
You think it's going to be better than these original movies?
Absolutely. Because it stands on the shoulders of those movies.
So 4.5 is all you're going with for the best Star Wars movie? Would you?
Because I'm so hesitant. I feel like I have, like, bet all your money on this horse.
Say it's true. Say this is the best
Then
one.
it's a 5 out of 5.
Would you go
I'm
balls
hedging
out?
my bet a little bit.
Would you go balls out and rate it a 5 out of 5, knowing what happened after Phantom Menace? People went in and were like, "This movie's actually really good."
But we
and
know
then they saw
more
it.
information about
That's
this.
true.
We know more information about this this simple piece of information, J.J. Abrams, that simple fact changes the equation radically.
The little bit that we've seen in the trailer, whatever, it hasn't given away too much. All the trailers, if you notice, and you haven't noticed because you haven't watched all of them, all the scenes that they show are from the same 2 or 3 scenes in what looks like the beginning of the movie, and we know nothing else.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even know until very, very recently. I didn't even know the name of the so-called menace or whatever, the so-called bad guy. I just, or villain is probably a better word. I'm stoked about that. I wish I didn't know his name, but or hadn't heard it. I guess I couldn't even tell you now.
The acting looks good from the trailers. These new people that there are no names like Mark Hamill, like Harrison Ford, like Carrie Fisher were.
Is Mark Hamill even in this?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
because I heard some
that's one of the
quiet rumor that he wasn't.
That's one of the surprises is
he wasn't in the trailer.
You haven't seen him. You haven't seen him. You haven't heard of him. You don't know.
Who knows?
So
yeah,
we've got to wrap this up. I think because
we should probably go get in line. Goodness,
we're going long, but basically we
couldn't be more excited.
We'll have a review for that. I mean, it's going to be late, but I'm sure we're going to want to talk about.
Oh, I'm bringing the recorder in the car.
So
because it'll be the best review we've ever done.
Yeah, but I'm leaving tomorrow to go home for a while, so I won't be here to do it. So we're doing that tonight, no matter how tired we are, because we're going to want to talk about this movie.
Yeah, I've been up since 4 a.m.
Even if it's great or if it's terrible, we're going to want to talk about it one way or another.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
So we'll have that for you. Last week was prequels. Check that out. Next week is a break week for the holidays. Mm-hmm. The week after, at some point around the first of the year, we'll do a top 10 list for the year. So I'll be coming back up here to do that. That'll be one of my favorite episodes to record, I think. Okay. So thanks for listening, guys. Check out all the past episodes if you've liked this one. I think this is one of our best episodes.
It's because it's the most fun I've ever had talking about a movie.
So check out past episodes. Check us out in the future. You can check Greg out on Twitter. See if you can spell it right this time.
Greg Crafted, GregCrafted.
Check me out at Jordan's Guide. You can check my website out. I'm doing reviews, all sorts of good stuff. That's jordansmovieguide.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.